Okay, so to continue with operant conditioning, the next idea after you think about reinforcing a behavior, so making a behavior more likely, which is what reinforcement is about, Skinner identified another kind of force in learned behavior called a conditioned reinforcer. Um, he sometimes called it a bridge. He sometimes described it as the law of contiguity. These are terms you might see in psychology, but basically, what a conditioned reinforcer is something that bridges the gap in time. So imagine an animal does a behavior that is positive. Um, if you wait to give reinforcement until later, that animal may not know why it's getting the reinforcement. So you want to give your reinforcement immediately. So Skinner identified the need to bridge this gap in time between the behavior you want, the behavior that's reinforced, and the time to get the food. So the chicken, maybe it's supposed to peck an orange circle on the wall, and it pecks it. If you can do something right away to reinforce that behavior, then the chicken will know that it was the peck of the orange dot that got it the reinforcement. And hence, pecking the orange dot will become more likely. If, on the other hand, the chicken pecks the orange dot, turns around, scratches at a spot on the floor, and then notices the primary reinforcer, the food, is in the dish, and goes over to the dish and eats, what have you reinforced? Not the peck on the wall, but the scratch at the dot on the ground. So you need something to give immediate feedback. We call it a conditioned reinforcer. Okay? So it's a secondary reinforcement. It's not a primary reinforcement. So it's not food or shelter or space or comfort. It's a secondary reinforcement, something that's not actually reinforcing on its own. And it allows you to not have any gap in time between the behavior you want and the actual primary reinforcement, which is the food. So clickers do this in dog training, or a snap. A lot of people will tap boxes and things like that. I do not need to restart my computer right now. So here we go with training tip number 4. So this is especially true with the chicken. Humans, it's even really true. Like when I think about my own daughters, when they're little, when they are the younger they are, my youngest daughter especially, if I'm going to give her reinforcement for something that she's doing that I like, I have to do it right away, or she's not going to make the connection between me saying, "Good job, that's great," and what she just did, or in what she did. She's not going to remember, oh, remember, 2 hours ago when you picked up your dolls and put them away? That was great. A 3-year-old can't do that. They're, like a chicken that way. The chicken's not going to remember, what it did 30 seconds ago that it's getting reinforced for. So you have to reinforce immediately following the behavior that you desire, or else you're going to end up reinforcing behaviors you don't want. So a conditioned reinforcer can help with this. I'll help show you guys some ideas later on. Don't worry about that right now. But you should understand what it's for. So the conditioned reinforcer is followed with the primary reinforcer, which is food. Never, ever reinforce something you do not want your chicken to do. That's a really important idea. Underline that, star it, highlight it, whatever. If you use your clicker and give food to the chicken when it does something you don't want it to do, it's going to do that behavior again. And that is the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so the next concept, shaping behavior. So conditioned learning occurs in steps. Most behaviors can't be learned all at once. They develop in steps. This step-by-step process is called shaping, and this is what you'll do with your chicken. So if you want your chicken to climb some steps and peck a ball into a hoop, it'll do that, but it's never going to do that all at once. So you might have to train your chicken to turn to the right so that it's facing the steps, and then take 1 step towards the step, and then 2 steps, and then go up to the steps, and then take a step onto the steps, and then walk halfway up the steps. And each one of those is going to require reinforcement and practice on the chicken's part until it becomes really good at it. You're never going to get the chicken to do the whole trick at once, and this is, again, a pitfall. A lot of people try to train behaviors, and they do not break their behaviors down into small enough steps. You need to use many small steps to shape the behavior out of individual behaviors that don't look anything like it. So turning to the left and facing stairs is not the same as climbing a set of stairs and pecking a ball into a hoop, but it's an important step in the overall process. So complex behaviors are learned through shaping. An animal may be reinforced by the environment for each little step towards the more complicated behavior. So that gets us to training tip number 5. You need a plan. Okay, before I'm going to give you a chicken, I'm going to ask you to give me your plan. Your prediction of how you're going to shape these small steps into more complex behaviors. It's called a training schedule, and you'll need to turn that in before you get your chicken. And again, don't worry about that right now, but just be aware that that's something you're going to have to do, and I'm going to be looking for lots of small steps. All right, last concept. Make this a little smaller here. Extinction of behavior. So it very well could happen at some point that your chicken's going to start doing something you don't like. At that point, we need to make that behavior become extinct. That's the term psychologists use for conditioned behaviors that you want to remove. You need to extinguish them or make them be extinct. So to understand this, you've got to go back to this idea that behaviors are built upon a stimulus, okay, occurs, and then the behavior you want, and then reinforcement is provided. So when an animal responds, that's the behavior part, when it does something to a stimulus, so it responds to a stimulus, but is not reinforced, it will stop performing the behavior. That's extinction. So if you never reinforce an animal for doing a behavior after a certain stimulus, it will stop doing it. So training tip number 6 is this. The box is the stimulus for your chicken. If you put the chicken in the box, don't reward it when it behaves the way you want, you will extinguish the behavior. So in other words, if you ignore your chicken when it's in the box, your chicken will be unlearning everything you have taught it. And the big idea here is this, guys. Once you get your chicken and you've started training it in your box, you can't ever leave your chicken alone in the box, okay? You have to take it out of the box whenever you're not there. If you want to leave the classroom, if you've got to go to the bathroom, you want to talk to somebody else about what your plans are for the weekend, fine. I don't care about that. You know, your job is to get your chicken trained, and if that, however you need to get that done. But if you need to step away from your chicken, you can't leave it in the box ever. Because if your chicken does some part of your trick and you're not there to reinforce it, you're going to make it go extinct. And not only is it going to be hard to retrain it, it may very well never do that again because it has learned. So it's not just that it hasn't ever tried it before, it's that it's learned that that doesn't work. All right, so that is training tip number 6. Look at the next video if you want to see some ideas from other students on how they, on their chicken tricks that I've seen students do. It's just a few little video links along with some of my advice about how to come up with an idea for training your chicken. And have fun with it. But make sure you keep these notes close because I am going to ask you to be able to reflect on what you do using the information from these notes. Thanks, guys.